Hi guys, and we're live with another Foundation chat. How are you doing this week? I see we've got Mr. Kilted in the room already, and obviously there's going to be a lot to talk about this week, so I'm going to give another 5 minutes for some people to arrive because there's a few late people last week after all the technical issues that I had, but hopefully we won't have a repeat of this week. Hopefully. But yeah, Mr. Kilted, I think you made a comment already. I don't know if it was one that I replied to, but what did you think about this episode? Because I'm just going to talk about certain scenes of it. I'm not going to talk about the entire thing, otherwise I'd be here quite a while, which is fine. But there's only so much you can talk about at a certain time. And if you're in the room, can you let me know if you can hear me? Everything looks fine. I just want to check that it is working. I forgot to ask. Could be talking into thin air again. Yeah, Mr. Kilton, seen you were having a look at the comments. There's always a lot of good theories and ideas there. More sensible ones than not that always surprise me. I always hope there'll be a few crazy ones, but usually all the kind of same ones. No, that's alright. I just want to make sure you can hear me. As long as it's working, that's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, as I said, so much to talk about this week. I mean, even the initial opening scenes of all the Demerzel stuff, you could sit and talk about that for hours and pick it apart. And those are the scenes that I've watched the most in this episode because it's just the mannerisms of the actors obviously playing the original Cleon, completely different but kind of the same. And you know, there's a lot going on in this episode, but it's certainly for me a Brother Day episode, 100%. Because you just get such a great insight into. Well, I suppose it's a Cleon episode rather than a Brother Day episode because you just get such a great insight into the guy and what he's like, and that he's kind of always been like this and kind of always will be like that. And yeah, the bit at the end as well when Demerzel totally like spanked him and then just walked away and got on her ship. Crazy stuff. But that ending is something we've got to talk about as well. But we're going to get to that. The other stuff, obviously, Hari's big return. And yeah, I made a theory video on that and I got a lot of good comments on it. I've still to go through them all. I was going to go through them for this live stream, but there was just too many. And there was too many long ones that I need to edit down, so I might do that in a separate video. But yeah, a lot of great comments to the Hari thing. A lot of other theories that I didn't mention or that I didn't come up with about being nanobots or something else. But yeah, we're going to get to that. And then I think as well before that, maybe Tellem, is she alive? Is she dead? Because she can swap bodies, remember that. It's something to think about, that she might be gone for the moment, but she might be back. Depends, I suppose, what they do at the end of season 2 and if there's going to be a time jump for season 3. I think that'll be the case, but you know, we're going to talk about that a little bit. There's also a few other characters that don't get a lot of screen time this week, like Hobart and Constant. That was not forced, I mean, it all fitted in, but they didn't get as much to do, although Hobart probably got the best line when he said, "Hey, yesterday," to Cleon. I thought that was pretty good, but yeah, maybe too many characters in this episode, and that's why they've killed a lot of, not a lot of them, but a lot of potential ones off. Hey Ryan, welcome to the room. How you doing? I hope you had a good weekend. So Mr. Kiltlett says I'm thinking more of a different direction with Tellem and the Mule. There's been a lot of theories about her, a lot of theories linking her to the Mule. Is she the Mule? Will she become the Mule? Because obviously we know she can body hop now. Also, have they created or will they create the Mule by the fact that they've seen him? Is it a kind of paradox thing? I hope it's not that. I really hope it's not that, but we're going to have to wait and see. But yeah, I was kind of shocked that we got him for a split second, although it was in episode 9 there. But yeah, let's get into it then and just go straight onto what we're talking about here. So the episode opens with, you know, we see the younger Cleon, but then it's him discovering Demerzel, and just the way that this is done, it's like, I think it's that artist Damien Hirst, is it, that cut up a sheep or a cow like that and put it into the slides, and they done it in that Hannibal TV show as well. It was really like, It's not how I expected, because you know it'd be obviously easy to do the just parts on a shelf or something like that. If you ever watched Star Trek and you seen what they've done with Data and Lore, just that kind of thing. But really, kind of, I don't know. Again, not what I was expecting with how we were going to meet Demerzel, or how Demerzel was going to meet, in this case, Cleon. I'll keep saying Day, but it'll be Cleon that we're talking about. And just the whole way that the scenes moved on, with you seen the other versions of them. So you've seen the ones that we're already aware of, like Dawn, Day and Dusk, but just how the actors played the characters differently, because it is a different character, but it's not. It's, again, depends on your point of view kind of thing. But I really love this, and you seen that the original Cleon, like, this is him. I suppose I was going to say without the tampering of Demerzel, but that's completely opposite. So this is the original way that Demerzel moulded Cleon, but then you see how she's done it throughout the years, and the original one was way more of a dick. Look, we'll get to that when we get to the Dusk bit in a minute, but even like this Dawn version, he was just so annoying and just a lot more angry. You've never seen Dawn angry like this before, so that was kind of surprising, refreshing, I want to say. Yeah, we've got a few more folk in the chat. The Mighty Shaba, I've seen you here before. Eric, Juan, Ryan shouted you out already. How you doing, folks? Did you all have a good weekend? Because it's been absolutely roasting here in Scotland. It's kind of cooled down today. It's rained finally, but it's been disgusting. Let's put it that way, heat wise. Shouldn't complain compared to some parts of the world, but it's not been nice. But anyway, yeah, going back to what I was saying about the different performances, even Lee Pace, who, the one thing you can say in Foundation is Lee Pace steals every scene that he's in, even if he doesn't want to. I mean, he gets so much screen time and so much to do this week with Day when he was out and about, because we never really see Day leave the palace apart from that one time in season 1. But this other version, or again the original version of him, it's just like the performances are so different and so nuanced, and it was absolutely brilliant. And if you notice, just look the way that he moves across the room as well. I think it's because he doesn't have the armor on, and obviously that impacts how you would wave, you know, how you would conduct your body language. So yeah, definitely like the way that they done this, and again using, well, it's not the clones because it's original Cleon, but using the 3 different chapters of his life to tell the story was great. Because I thought it was going to mostly focus on Day. I thought the entire episode was going to be half, you know, what the one that they done with the Hari Seldon flashbacks. I think it was episode 6 or 7, where it was like half flashbacks and then half the current story of what was going on in Terminus. But we sort of wasn't split that way. It was all kind of dumped at the start, unfortunately. So I'll finish discussing this scenes and I'll get to some questions in the chat as well. But obviously, the effect of her being split up like that, I don't think it looked that good, if I've got to be honest. Like, it didn't work for me. The effect of her, the way she was divided was great, but as in, I'm talking about the way that the face moved. In a show of phenomenally brilliant effects and scenes, and especially all the space battle stuff in this episode, the show looks beautiful, so I'm willing to give this one a buy. But yeah, kind of a bit freaky as well. Foundation never really gets into the whole horror thing. But then, obviously, you've got Dusk letting her out, and I've not got a picture of it, but when she gets out and she starts crying, like, you now know that robots have emotions, because she wasn't mimicking that. She's mimicked almost every other emotion that any Cleon's ever seen of her, but she wasn't mimicking that. That was 100% real, so that's something that I don't think has get picked up on enough or discussed enough. I've not seen anyone really talk about how she reacted. But then you've got the deal, or not the deal, because I suppose they forced her into it, to, you know, essentially rule forever alongside him, next to him, under him, any position you want. Missionary, it seems. Boom, boom. But yeah, this proves how much of a dick the original Cleon was, because he made her another prisoner after letting her go free, essentially. But she's not gone free, and then you think about it on the other level, that he made her a prisoner in the same cycle as him because he didn't want to be without her, or he didn't want her to be more freer or have more freedom than he did, and that's kind of picked up when you think about it. But speaking of prisoners, before I go on to the next topic, is what about Rue and Dusk back in the present timeline? Because obviously the original Cleon's image, what would you call it, projection, image, hollow, let's call it hollow, the hollow Cleon has trapped them, and I think that's clearly what Demerzel was rushing off to at the end of the episode when she left Day. She's been notified that these two are down there, so a few theories on this, on how this is going to get resolved, because she can memory wipe them, that's one possibility. She can kill them, she can, kill Dusk, memory wipe them, and just decant another one. She can kill Rude. There's a whole lot of permutations on how this can go down. She could also use them as leverage against Dawn and Seraph, which would be very human of her, but I don't know if they'd do that. But yeah, I think out of all the stuff that's happened in this episode, my god, there's been a lot of it that happened. That's one thing that I'm not sure how they're going to resolve, is what's going on back in Trantor with Dawn and Seraph and Dusk and Rue. But I'm going to talk about that later in the stream. But let's look at some of the questions that we've got, folks. Man, there's a lot of you in there tonight. Good chat as always. The Mighty Shabba sound like he's coming to an end of a hard weekend. Chewing the fat, I think I know exactly where you're from. Oh, the Mighty Shabba's because he got engaged. Outstanding. Congratulations. Mr. Kilted says, avoiding the wall of text here, how do you look at the series as a viewer? Do you look at each character from a completely different point of view? Yes and no, it depends on the series, but one thing that I focus on is what they focus on. So I don't mean the characters, like stuff like focusing on that little boy. Is it Joseph or Josiah on the planet Ignis? They keep focusing on him. And then, where Salvor found out the Prime Radiant was in her jacket, we seen the exact, or a rough version of it when it was flattened out before in Harry's office. So they kind of hinted at that and how you can set it up. So I focus on the characters and what's going on with them. And then if I'm focusing on a character, say Bel Rios, it's, well, what is this guy going to do? Because in this episode, obviously, he had to make a choice, and we'll get to that and the impact of what it might have. But yeah, when they introduce a character, any of the new ones like Bell or Seraph, it's really interesting to theorise on where it's going to go. Bell, a bit more easier because he's from the books and he's a bit more closely adapted rather than some others, but I'm not really here to talk about the books because that would be a completely different conversation. But at the moment I'm focused on who's alive and how they're alive and who's dead and how they dead, because I'll get to it, but I don't think Tellem Bond is 100% dead. Let's see what else we got. Tune the Fat says the first Cleon is the most evil, I think. Yep, well, he's the original recipe one. Because you've got to think about it that Demerzel must have at least perfected by now the best technique to manage these guys. And we've seen it, it was the start of episode 2 where Day and Demerzel are talking and she's trying to convince him into getting Bel Rios on side, and Day just is one of his big spats, and then at the end he says, how long are you going to let me go on for, or something like that, or how long before I stopped, and she went, a minute. So she knows him, she knows how to, that was like the first, one of the big first signs, when I talk about things they focus on, that she knows this guy and she manages this guy, and this is the best version that she's got, because she spent 400 odd years now doing it. But obviously she's very old, so being, which she was 18,000, 400 years isn't that long. And she mentions a human lifespan isn't that long to her either. Let's see what's going on in this episode. So yeah, I was just talking about it there, and the one I want to get to before Hari coming back is Tellem Bond's death. Because I wouldn't say she's been a villain this season. I mean, there's a difference between a villain and an antagonist. She's certainly an antagonist. But yeah, I didn't know what they were going to do with her initially. I thought she was, I mean, she is a kind of cultist, but I thought she was going to play way more into that angle, and it was going to be a mirror to what was going on with Constant and Polly in the church and stuff. But yeah, she came a lot more physical, especially in that episode there. But is she dead? Because we've seen that she can swap, or she's told us that she can swap bodies, and she's done it many times. So is it like, she can take over someone else's body if they're willing? Because remember, Gal wasn't willing. So could she take over one of her followers? Could that be that little kid they keep focusing on, whose name I cannot remember? Let me know. What do you think? Is Tellem dead? Give me a Y in the chat, and if Tellem's alive, give me a no or an N. Because I want, part of my sort of conspiracy brain wants to be like, yeah, she's alive and she's going to come back, and then it's like, well, if this episode plays out straight the way you watch it, they killed a lot of characters, and I think maybe she's probably dead because of that. Because of, if it is getting a next season, which I think it is getting a season 3, we're going to have to get more faces and more new names and stuff. But yeah, I was pretty shocked. Oh, what fucked back to do there? I was pretty shocked about the whole Tellem dying thing, at least for the moment. But do you think she's taken over one of her followers' bodies? Chris says dead. I think you're right. Like, if I'm being my logical brain in terms of the story and what works for the show, because again, they're going to have to kill people to bring in new characters. She's dead. But the wee tiny part of my, theorist brain that doesn't, it's a bit fan servicey, I suppose. It's like, oh, she'll be back. Because you could argue that the whole show's, or a whole bunch of characters in the show have got immortality, like Hari and Demerzel, stuff like that. But yeah, I think she's probably dead, sadly. But it's a nice little theory, and I might do a video on it, I don't know. But I suppose the big one then is Hari coming back. And obviously I've made a video on this, and I've had a look at your comments, and a lot of comments. 2 seconds, I'll take a look, see how many we've got. Where are we? 123, my god, that's a lot of comments. I've not replied to even half of these. I've looked at most of them, and yeah, it seems to be generally, some people think that he's a robot, some people think that he is a copy, but it was the nanobots that brought him back, because remember the nanobots from season 1? 2 seconds, there's a bit of a plane going by. Sorry about that, folks, it was just a bit of background noise there. But yeah, I think he has to be some version of robot. I mean, someone did point out that when Callie went into her cave, you seen 3 tanks. But I don't know. I don't think he's a clone. A clone with nanobots, again, that sounds too fan servicey. Chris says Demerzel sent the assassins. I kind of think that. I kind of think she was also involved in mutating or tampering with the original Cleon DNA. But I'm not going to get into that too much, so I'm definitely going to do a video on that during the week. But yeah, with the whole Hari being alive thing, it's worth pointing out as well that he's wearing the same clothes that he was when he was in the water, so it is the same guy. It's not another copy or some kind of weird hologram or something like that. So Mr. Kilted says, clone body, why is he still hurt and in dirty clothing? Again, people have said to me in the comments and stuff that it could be he's a copy with Imperial nanobots, but as I just said, I think that's too fan service. It's using too much. Foundation never really does that and uses too much, so I think he's some sort of human form robot, but more advanced than Demerzel, because remember, it's all about perception, and Demerzel has said she's 18,000 years old. So if this is the latest version that we're seeing in Hari, he's going to be a bit more advanced. It's like Terminators, they get more advanced. Reese said the first ones had rubber skin, then they grew skin, then they fitted in. Then you got the T-1000. So Hari is, if he is a robot, is 18,000 years more advanced than Demerzel is. So I think it was just a case of downloading what was in I suppose it was in the Radiant, because it went from the knife to the Radiant. And then putting it into a robot body. But that then means the only reason I don't think he might be a robot is that means they can just bring him back whenever they want, or whatever Callie is can bring him back, or make another version of him, or whatever you want to call it, another copy. But yeah, I think it's worthwhile remembering the maths that excuse me, that Demerzel is a robot that's 18,000 years old, and any new robot that had been built in, say, the last 1,000 years would be radically different and more advanced to her. Ryan says Hari has to be a robot. I think he even stopped cutting, checking if he was human, because he realised it wouldn't matter anyway. And yeah, I think you're right on that. There is a few scenes where he's cutting himself with a knife that his consciousness was in, or the copy of him was in. But then there's the other argument that there is the other argument that if he is a robot, the scenes where he was in the water, like how did he drown? Because he appeared to drown, but as I pointed out in a couple of videos, his face was above the water, whereas in Salvor she was back facing up, so her face was in it. So he was kind of floating above it. So I thought that she was just Tellem was maybe just torturing him, and then she kind of confirmed that he was dead. So a bit of a weird one. Shabba says sounds like you're on the same bottle of wine as me. No, I'm bunged up with hay fever. The weather's been crazy here. And there's a lot of pollen in the air. So if that sort of sounds good, I suppose it means I'm relaxed. Ryan says if a robot thinks it can drown, it will drown. Good point. Very good point. But I'm sure I seen in an interview or a podcast, I heard it mentioned somewhere on Twitter, or maybe it was in the comments, that Goyer has said it will get explained by the end of the season, so that's going to be this week. And yeah, I think this week episode 10 has to focus on even this Hari stuff, and obviously the Seraph and Dusk Dawn Rue situation. I wonder what Day's going to be up to though. That's the thing, they've got going to have to fit a lot in. Like, they might not catch up with everyone, and I've heard that there's going to be a pretty big setup for stuff to come, but I don't know what it is specifically. Where were we then? So Hari's still alive. But another thing I want to talk about is deaths then, is the whole Terminus attack. Is everybody dead? Because there's loads of theories going about this on Reddit. Was it Reddit or was it Twitter? I think it was Reddit. That, and someone even said it in my comments, that this could be Hari using the telepaths. Because remember, there's a time difference between the two stories. The story of the trio of Hari, Gale, and Salvor on Ignis, and then what's going on in the rest of the universe with Day and the Foundation and stuff like that. So it could be that in this time between the two stories, that whatever's happened after Tellem's death, they've somehow got enough telepaths on their side that they can manipulate everyone. So what everyone sees once there's a few different points. People say what everyone sees once Day lands on the planet isn't real, and then some people say he goes into the Prime Radiant and he doesn't come back out. I don't think that's right, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, my basic question then is, do you think that everyone is dead and that all these deaths are real? Or do you think it's some sort of fantasy created by the telepaths, or some sort of illusion, or something that we haven't seen before? Because I've got a few theories on why it probably couldn't be. And as I said, I'll just say one of them already. It's because they're cutting out a lot of the B story. You know, they've killed off Polly, they've killed off Belle's husband, they've killed off essentially the first Foundation, kind of, at its core. So they've cut down quite a lot of the sort of B and C stories that they had, because they're going to have to introduce new ones and then promote stories and then focus on stuff in later seasons. So that's why I think it probably has been destroyed, along with something else that would kind of disprove the whole telepath thing. But I'll give that a second. See if anyone's got any other good ideas. So John D says, going back to the Hari thing, this version of Hari was given a body in an earlier episode, so it makes sense that the body he was given was a robot body and appeared dead, but I'd expect the sighted to notice him being a robot. Yeah, that's another thing as well. Well, I kind of mentioned it earlier. I'm going to do a video on it, is how does telepathy work on robots? Because again, when Demerzel came out, she had real emotion, so she's got some sort of consciousness that I don't think they're going to explain how it works in the show. But if Hari was a robot then yeah, he'd be a copy of a man that experienced emotion. So maybe that's the way around it. But then if they couldn't scan his mind, they would know. Like they wouldn't hide that. Maybe I don't know. I'd need to go back and watch because I can remember things that Tellem said about seeing and looking into Gale and Salvor's mind, but I can't remember anything that she said looking into Harry's mind. But then the whole flashback scene was in Harry's mind, so interesting. If he is a robot that can experience stuff like that, it's a good point. But we're going to be here all night talking about robots and what he is and what he isn't. Look, I think there's just so many good ideas, and I don't think any of them are going to be close. Just don't make it time travel. Don't make it time travel. Yeah, let's see, got a few more questions. Da, 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 da. Hari has a mind rather than Demerzel being an AI. Hugh says that's a good point. Another good point that I didn't make is when Cleon finds Demerzel, she's in pieces, but he never figures out how she works. But she figures out how he works and learns how to manipulate him. I think that was a pretty good thing that I'm going to drop in a video later on this week. That yeah, it's she's in pieces, but he never learns how she really works. But she learns to take him apart. Good point, I thought. Anyway. So Vic's saying David said the planet was done and everyone on it was gone. Yeah, I think that was in a podcast or another interview. And Vic, welcome to the chat as well. I think this is the first time you've been here. But again, my wee spoiler theory video, member berries fan guy wants it to be true, but yeah, for production reasons, I think they've just killed a bunch of characters so they can move the story on, and it makes sense. But one criticism of this season would be they didn't spend enough time showing us what life on Terminus was like. So I would have liked to have seen it. I know we got Polly and stuff, and Constant and her dad and whatever, but we didn't really see what a day in the life was like. Whereas I suppose we've seen maybe too much of it in season one. They wanted to show us new stuff, but yeah, I'd like to have seen how it had grown in those 100 odd years and what people were up to, because we've seen the factories or the church or whatever you want to call it where they were building all of their stuff, and I just think I want to see that all get set up. And where are they building these whisper ships? And what did they do with the Invictus? That's another great one, because it doesn't seem that they adapted much of the technology other than jump drive. I think that was a lot of that was a bit of a letdown for people in this episode, that the Invictus didn't do more. It just kind of sat there and got shot. We got loads of people in the chat. How you doing, guys? John Bonda, welcome back. Banfa Mojito, that's a great name. Great name for a band. Banfa Mojito says Seldon exists in the Prime Radiant and he tricked Cleon to take him with him before destroying Terminus. Yeah, I'll talk about the Prime Radiant and where it's at in a second, because Cleon didn't take it. It was in Demerzel's hands. She walked out with it, I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong, but I'm sure she had it. If not, she's going to get it. I wonder... Nah, she couldn't build her own. That's a stupid theory. I don't think she'd be able to build her own just by looking at that one that was in there. But I suppose the fact that he can take the Prime Radiant out of the vault means that the one in the vault physically was real. Well, we know that the vault can repurpose stuff anyway, because it done it with Hari. So yeah, it made a physical copy, because I just thought that the copy in the vault was like a symbolic copy, if that makes sense. I didn't think it was real. I suppose we know the vault makes food as well, because that episode where Polly and Constant went in, they had something to eat. So yeah, that was a bit of a slip me up there. Tune the Fat says that battleship of theirs went down too fast. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Invictus didn't do much, and I thought they would have. I don't know. I thought they would have developed the technology or come up with a better plan. I mean, the argument that they got beaten so easily was, no matter how advanced they are, they're scientists, and Bell is like a hardcore military general. That guy's entire life's about fighting, so any plan that they have, they're still going up against how many years Bell has, 20, 30, probably 40 years experience of fighting and killing. So I don't think they would have won. Excuse me. I don't think they would have won if they had maybe another ship. Because, again, it was only Bell's ship that fired and launched fighters, wasn't it? I don't think the others done it. I was expecting a bit more of a big fleet battle, like the stuff you got in Babylon 5, that kind of thing, but sadly didn't get that. Let's see who else we got in the comments, on chats. Krishna, Vic again. Vic says, who knows, maybe this version of the planet is gone. Maybe there's another version similar to how there are two Harrys. I don't think they could make an entire planet. Obviously, there's going to be the second foundation starting. But it's more, when you think about it, why is there the time difference between the story on Ignis and the story everywhere else on Terminus and Trantor and everything? Why is there that delay? Why is there that separation? It's got to be for a reason. And going back to what I said earlier on about focusing what they focus on, when Vault Hari spoke to Salvor in episode 8, I think it was, he worked everything out. And Hari, and versions of Hari have said that, they're like, well, if I don't know something, I'm still me, I'll work it out eventually. So I think that's something that we've got to remember as well. Let's see, man, there's a lot of people in the chat tonight. Busy, looking good, folks. Again, I hope you all had a good weekend. But I assume this was everyone's favourite episode. I mean, at least the season 2. Certainly the most visually stunning. Like, I knew from the trailers, we're going all the way back to the trailer 2 season, the season 2 trailer even, season 2 trailer, that we're going to get space battles. And I thought it was going to be in the last episode, so I wonder if it's just all going to be chat in the last episode then. Or someone's going to meet some horrible fate like Azura from season 1. But what a beautiful show as well. Like, it just looks so good. And the director, Roxanne Dawson, who played B'Elanna Torres on Star Trek, I think she directed the last 2. Like, my god, like, it's Game of Thrones level stuff, because I've actually watched a bit of Game of Thrones this week, the last season. And it's just exactly the same scope, and it gets you exactly the same way when you see that big... Well, I suppose it's not an attack, when you see the Invictus falling on the planet after the attack. It gets you the same way that certain scenes in Game of Thrones went, and it just went out wrong for everyone. But one of the writers on the show used to work for Game of Thrones as well. I think Jane Epps, I can't remember her name. Terrible names. But anyway, let's go back to the chat. So Mr. Kilted says, the second part when Hari uploaded himself to the Prime Radiant, is it possible the AI of the Prime Radiant fused together with Hari and making the AI become sentient? No, I don't think so. I think... well, give me a second. I think that what is going to be the focus on is... Day now knows from his conversation with Hari in the vault that he's not special. Like, Hari said that, he's like, I've studied people that are special, and hey man, it ain't you, it ain't the next you, and it ain't going to be the guy after that either, don't worry about it. So I think in season 3, so just forget about the finale, I don't think they're going to do a time jump in the finale, but in season 3 there's going to be a time jump where Day or Demerzel has been studying Hari's work in order to try and manipulate it. I suppose it depends on a few things. If Day and Demerzel, or Demerzel is still with the Cleons, because obviously he wants to end the dynasty. So again, forgetting about what's going to happen in the finale with Seraph and everything like that. But, yeah, I think one of them is going to try and study Hari's work. I can see Day doing it because the ego on that guy, he got shot down so many times in this episode, like 3 times. When he got to the Foundation, he seen that he didn't inspire the same kind of loyalty as Hari Seldon. Actually, more than 3 times. He got Hari telling him that he wasn't special. He got Hari offering to give the Prime Radiant to Demerzel, and then he got that speech for Demerzel before she left him, and that was just like... That's just off the top of my head. I'm sure there's maybe more times than that. That's what I'm saying earlier on, if you missed the start of the chat, that for me it was a Brother Day episode, because you just see how bad that guy is, or how bad that guy could be. But yeah, I think Day's going to try and study the work and not understand it. But we know that the Cleons had people studying it in season 1 for about, what was it, 40 years or 50 years? Something like that. And they said that they couldn't come down either side on if Seldon was right or wrong. But yeah, something to think about, guys. What do you think? Who's going to have it? Do you think, first of all, do you think Day and Demerzel are still going to have their union? And I don't just mean sleeping together, I mean still be together. And do you think that they're going to be studying Hari's work? Because I think it'd be such an obvious miss if they didn't have that. Excuse me, folks, just grabbing a drink. Going through the chat as well. So Brandon, hey, welcome, said Hari stated he wanted to delay war with Empire as long as possible. What was the point if Foundation was just going to be destroyed anyway? Here's the point though. It's been mentioned, again, going back to what I was saying, where focus on the things that they focus on. One thing they've mentioned a lot, and a few characters have said it to various versions of Hari, past, present, future, alive, dead, whatever, is that he focuses on numbers, not people. So he's looking at the big picture. He doesn't care about the people on Terminus. He doesn't want to win the battle. He wants to win the war. So when you think about that, it does change the sort of perspective on, is it all real or is it fake? It's probably real because Hari's considered that this loss can happen. And even, when Salvor asked, is Terminus going to survive the second crisis, he didn't answer her. Which also again makes me think that the whole telepath thing might be true, because if some people think it's gone, then it's gone. But that's what they done at the end of season 1, remember? They used the Invictus to create, was it the solar storm or the solar flare, so that people wouldn't come to the solar system looking for them. So they could do a fake out ending, or a fake out attack, or devastation, or destruction, whatever you want to call it, again. And I've got a video coming on that where I mention that point. But yeah, the fact that they've done it in season 1 makes me think they won't do it again, which makes me think that it was real. So Mr. Killet says, if I'm not mistaken, one of Hari's theories is that there's a link between all Prime Radiance network nodes on a quantum level. Yeah, that's right. It's quantum superpositioning, I think, is what he called it. And basically it means as long as one version of it exists, and the way that I understand it, they won't do this in the show, but the way I understand it is if the one version of the Prime Radiant exists, many versions can, at different points in space and time. Because I actually thought that was how he went back and added Tobor Mallow's name. There was a bit of a debate online about that, and David Goyer did clear it up saying it's 2 different time periods, but initially some people thought that, it's like a quantum superposition thing where you can influence the outside of the vault from the past, because it exists at the same point. Everything exists at the same point everywhere. It's very complicated stuff that I've tried to wrap my head around, and even with a basic understanding, it's very hard to explain it. But yeah, they are all linked, so I suppose if Day or Demerzel does take the Prime Radiant back to Trantor, he's going to have a listening device. But then there's another theory as well, because we've seen that Hari can partially copy himself onto someone, because he done that with Constant when they went to Trantor. So maybe Day's packing a version of Hari. What do you call it? What was the name of the bunny in that James Stewart film? Harvey? Where you can only see the rabbit, or Donnie Darko, I suppose. So it might just be a version of Hari in Day's head. Oh, that would be good for season 3 if it was a version of Hari in Day's head. That would be really good, actually. But I don't think they're going to do that. So Ariel, welcome to the chat. Hope you're having a good weekend. Says, I do not accept the Foundation losing like that. Something is going on here that we don't know about. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. This time difference, it keeps coming back to, why are these 2 stories told in different time periods? It's to allow something to happen that we've not seen. So I can't get my head around what it's going to be, because it won't be anything directly from the books because they're adapting things too loosely. Like big events and big things like the mule they've got to put in, but other stuff like changing the way that Hobor Mallow is very different from the books. But again, as I've always said this, you would need to cut it down or it would be boring. And obviously the addition to the Cleons straight away is a change from the books, but I just don't know how they're going to end this season. I think we're going to see the start of the fall, or there's going to be a time jump, like the way that season 1 ended when they both arrived on Synax or whatever, or it was Salvor that arrived on Synax and found Gale. No, it was the other way about. Gale arrived on Synax and found Salvor. That there's going to be some leap, like a sort of Marvel Coda scene, if that's what you call it. So Justin Sizemore, welcome to the chat. Hope you had a good weekend. Says Terminus isn't the only Foundation world at this point. Aren't there others? Absolutely. That's what I was talking about when I meant that Hari looks at things more like numbers than people. He's quite happy to lose Terminus if it saves 5 other worlds. I know it sounds harsh and it's his home and whatever, but again, it's a big grand plan. You can't think of things in if a person dies. It's these huge events need to happen. Excuse me. John Jenkins says show writer said everyone on Terminus is dead. Right, okay. So that was Goyer then. So yeah, he mentioned it in a chat somewhere. So Vic says there's a pic of a bunch of women dressed like Demerzel and they appear to be standing outside the vault. So that's from that scene you were talking about. Hold on, I'm going to scroll back in the chat because I might have missed something here. So Vic says, yeah, there's a pic and trailers I don't think I've seen before in season 2 episodes so far. There's probably a few, but I don't think they're going to give away anything about the ending in it. Although there's one thing that I don't think we've seen, which is Hari on his knees in front of Day. There was that, and I've been meaning to make a video about it all week and I keep forgetting about it, but I need to go back and see if it's actually been in the show. Because that's the thing, it's so hard to keep track of all these Haris and who they interact with. And if it's at different time periods as well, it's like, oh, how do I edit this video to tell the story? Like, or explain it. It's just, it's a nightmare sometimes. Simplify the show. I mean, I love the writing, but stick on the one timeline, please. It would make editing videos a lot easier. A few other comments. Ban for Mojito, favourite name. So I thought that Gale and Salvor timeline is different before the scene of Terminus destruction, and May Gale does finally set up Foundation 2. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. That the stuff on Ignis with the flesh and blood Hari that died and then came back and the telepaths is a different time period to Brother Day, Seraph, Terminus, Constant, Hobor, all that stuff. Give me a second, guys. Just need just check. But loads of comments tonight. Make sure you like as well and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already, guys. But I knew the Terminus thing would be the sort of main debate. But also, bringing up another theory is we all seen it from different perspectives. So even if it was, some sort of telepathic deception, or even if everything that happened after Day stepped out the vault is just a fantasy and in his head. We see the destruction of Terminus from Demerzel's point of view on her ship, from Day's point of view, from Bell's point of view, from Hobor's, Constant. Why would you show that if it wasn't real? So yeah, they're all dead. Sorry guys, they are all dead. What a terrible thing to say. But then there is that I was talking about, the big Prime Radiant itself. Because I wonder what they're going to do with the other one then. That's on Ignis with Salvor, Gale, and back to breathing Hari. You've got to wonder if Callie's got a version of that as well on Una's world. Is it Una on Callie's world, or it's Callie on Una's world? I always get that wrong. The thing with these shows like this in Game of Thrones, if it's slightly normal names, or names that sound slightly normal but they're pronounced differently, and it just throws you. But yeah, if you haven't guessed, I've been watching Game of Thrones again this week. I think maybe because I did watch Foundation and that the size and scope of that episode 9. Not a lot of shows do that anymore, sadly, or have the budget to do it, or are even getting made at the moment because of the strikes. Susanna, hey, she says she's late. That's alright, don't worry about it. Welcome to the chat as always. We've been speaking about everything, but mostly a few key scenes. So Vic, thank you for the super chat, absolutely amazing. Thank you for creating this live and a space to discuss theories. Hey, I do it, or I've done it with this and Silo. I didn't do live streams with Silo, although I kind of wish I had, and I wish I started the Foundation one sooner. It was one of my goals to create, not a cool place, because that sounds terrible, like a cool place, but a place where people can discuss theories and get into it and not have, I'm trying to say this in a polite way, not have shitty toxic fandom bullshit. It's one of the reasons that I don't cover DC and Star Wars is because those fan bases are just crazy and I don't really want to get down. I mean, I'm doing the Ahsoka show, but we'll see how that goes. I don't get any really crazy comments. I used to get comments on Orville videos when it was the Orville Season 3, which was about a year ago. A few crazy ones on that. But yeah, Foundation and Silo is the stuff that I've built my channel on and allows me to do streams like this and talk to people like you and interact. And I say it all the time, well, I've said it in the last 2 live streams, not all the time, that I do try and reply to every comment that I get, but it's not always possible, but at least try and like or seen or make you see that I've seen it. Because some of the comments are absolutely brilliant. Some of them are absolutely long, and I should do a video on that with the really long comments. Ruben, hey man, have a good show, thank you. We're getting well into it anyway. Hugh says Severance is a great show too. Yeah, I'm going to cover Severance actually, because Season 2 should be coming. I know it's been filmed, but God knows what Apple's doing with all the strikes and if they're pushing anything back. I don't think they are, because Severance and For All Mankind are the 2 shows that I was going to start covering, and I can cover the first season of Severance no problem at all. But yeah, Severance is a really good show, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I'm not going to discuss it here for people that haven't seen it, because you wouldn't watch the video otherwise, but clever concept, very well acted, and very asks you questions about what it is to be you, essentially. But Vic, really appreciate the super chat, thank you, it does mean so much. And we got another chat as well from Fernandez T. They're flying in tonight, thanks a lot guys. Thanks for the reviews and theories. What one thing would they have to do to ruin it a little for you? Time travel. Don't do time travel. Like, they've kind of done it with the whole Gal visions. But yeah, don't do time travel on this show, please. I'm begging the producers and writers not to do time travel. I don't think they would. But yeah, time travel would ruin it, or if they'd done something so obvious and didn't explain, or if they kept doing the fake out deaths, because I get that one of the themes of the show is immortality and cycles, and Hari and Cleon, or Hari and Day are, you know, mirrors or parallels for each other. So yeah, if they kept killing people and bringing them back, I'm kind of at my limit for that now. It's reminding me of, what was the last Star Wars film? Rise of Skywalker, where there was just so many death fake outs that was like, oh, it was terrible, and it does make me cringe. Not cringe when I'm watching Foundation, but too many death fake outs would be one. Just can't have it. But thanks for that chat, man. That is absolutely amazing. And thanks everyone for showing up. Again, if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to discuss memberships and stuff later on, because I'm going to post longer videos, and I might post video commentaries as well that I can't really post on YouTube, because I did get a copyright strike from Apple this week, but it was my own fault. It was the way that I edited it. I edited it in a stupid way, so I'll fully accept that it was my fault, but the argument would also be it was 10 seconds with me talking about Foundation. There was no audio from the episode in it. But there was no long-term repercussions of that. I just removed the clip and put something over it. So there you go. But again, it was my fault. So Vic says, also not a book reader, was tempted to read but want to watch the show from a series-only perspective. I understand what you mean. There's a few things like that as well. Like, I tried to read the Game of Thrones books, and I got to like the 4th book, and I was kind of like, I just want to see how they're going to do it. Is the 4th book the one with the big battle of the wall? I can't remember. I think it's the 4th book, but I got to whatever the battle of the wall is in the books, and I was just like, alright, I want to see how they're going to do that on screen, because Game of Thrones hadn't reached that point yet. But Yeah, I'm going to do a video on how the books ends, because it's a little bit complicated. I'm obviously going to skip a lot of stuff, so I wouldn't be giving spoilers, but as I keep saying, the story is now loosely adapted from the books. They're doing their own thing, so it'd be kind of hard to spoil it anyway, because you don't know what characters they're going to focus on or storylines they're going to focus on, because they trim a lot back. Because again, otherwise it'd be boring. Welcome, guys. Loads of you in the chat tonight. And again, I hope you all had a good weekend. Excuse me. Finally rained here. It's not heat compared to where, if anyone's in South, I would say South Florida, that's very specific. If anyone's in like the South of America or Texas or something like that, it's not that hot, but it's hot for Scotland. But let's go back over the rest of the questions and comments, not all of them. John Bonda says, remember in episode 8, Dusk asks when the nanobots will start to heal them, and Demerzel could have modified Cleon's nanobots after he died if a Cleon's corpse robotic law doesn't apply to him. Yeah, the whole robotic laws thing's interesting. Like, the way that they're doing it in the show and how they're presenting it at the moment, because without getting into too much spoilers, robots play a huge part in the future of Foundation, but also other things that we might not see on screen, because again, I know they don't have all the rights for it. I think there's one name that they can't use. If I said the Man on the Moon, if you've read the book, you'll know what I mean when I say the Man on the Moon. Mr. Kiltwood says, may I ask, where located in Scotland are you? I am about 10 miles outside of Glasgow. I lived in Glasgow for years, and in the last 5 or 6 years I've lived about 10 miles outside of Glasgow. But a lot of chat tonight, that's what I like to see. And I mentioned reviewing Severance. I'm also going to be doing Raised by Wolves as well after Foundation ends, because that was such a good show that got the axe. I think I posted about that on the community tab. So Ariel says, the crew on board the Invictus didn't even put up much of a fight. It was like they weren't even trying. Something is up. Yeah, as I was saying, they're scientists, they're not soldiers. Like, you seen that, I don't know if that was the captain of the ship, but the guy that was, the bald guy that was at the sort of controls talking to the junior officer, they were nervous because they're going up against, Bel Rios, who's this legendary general, and again, essentially highly trained expert killer. So, doesn't matter how big your gun is if you don't know how to use it. If the guy in front of you is better at using a pistol or knife or whatever, and you're not, you're for the chop. You might get lucky, but it won't last. Mr. Kiltwood says, used to live in Greenock. Well, commiseration. I'm only joking. I've not been to Greenock. God, I've not been to Greenock in years. Never going to that neck of the woods. Krishna says, I also think Hari did something to Demerzel. He was inside the vault, a space that he controls completely. Maybe he gave her a way out of her servitude. I don't know. Part of me wants to think that something went on there that we didn't see, but I don't know. But again, there's the whole thing, as I was talking about earlier on, we've seen with, what was it, episode 7, where Hari came out a constant at the end. So he could do something like that, but I doubt it. But yeah, I said it earlier on in the stream, I don't know if you were here or not, that I would love it if Hari did put a bit of himself or a bit of his consciousness into Day, and in next season it's Day, but only he can see Hari, so he's like his imaginary friend or tormentor. But give me a second, guys, I'm losing my voice. I think that'd be good, but we'll need to see where this season ends off. Because that's the thing, it doesn't really matter where it ends off. Where season 1 finished, you wouldn't have guessed where season 2 was going to go. I don't think people would have guessed any. You wouldn't have guessed that there's going to be a brother Day that wants to break the dynasty and marry this young queen. If you've read the books, you might have guessed about the Church of the Foundation or Hobost or something like that, but you would never have guessed that they brought the mule in at this point. So wherever they end it off, it's open-ended, you know. It's an open-ended, I was going to say it's an open-ended book, but it's terrible. Fernandez T says, oh, that's in reply to someone else, I thought about that a lot. I think it's because he was impure, but they were all impure, so yes, something is up. Good question, though. So it was EL that asked, what did EL ask? How was Demerzel able to overcome her Cleon programming when she snapped Dawn's neck earlier in the show? Right, I've got a theory on that. So, I'll need to go back and rewatch the scene, but where Dawn, you know, puts the chip in her and gives her the programming, whatever you want to call it, and she can't hurt him, what is her definition of a human? Because think about it this way, if the clones have been mutated or manipulated, whatever you want to call it, is that enough of a change that would allow her to break her programming? Excuse me. Also, as well, at the end of the episode, when she totally told Day what she thought of him and walked off, that's never happened before. He knew, you know, looking at his face, he's never heard about that happening before. So maybe she's not as bound to these versions of Cleons as she was to previous ones, because, you know, they're not the genetic 100% copy, they're 70% Cleon and God knows whatever else. Maybe. Or let's have a think on this one. Or, you know, she said she serves Empire, so when she killed that Dawn, maybe she didn't know that the mutations were going to affect every clone, and she thought she was just getting rid of, you know, the black sheep of the family to decant another one. She didn't know that they were all contaminated. Those are my two answers on that one. I hope I answered the question. EL or L, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Let's see. A lot of you in the chat, as always, guys. Thanks for joining. Hope you had a good weekend. And I said it earlier on, but this has got to be everyone's favourite episode. Like, definitely of season 2. Ariel says, love Hari Seldon. He's the favourite character in the series. Which version? All of them? Because that's so, all of them? One of them? Do you have a favourite? Do you have a least favourite Hari? It's good. Good point, or not good point, depending on, again, your point of view. John Jenkins says, episode 208, still my favourite. 209 was amazing too. Yeah, I like 208, but the scope of Hobor's attack on Trantor, not like what he done in terms of jump the ship in, but once he got into that platform, it looked a bit shit. It was just guys dodging bricks with smoke, and I get that, like, I get there's budgetary restraints and you've got to cut some things down to make bigger things. But yeah, compared to like the space battles you were getting in episode 9, like episode 8 for me wasn't as visually strong, but it was the first time in a while we've had the shock element rather than the cliffhanger element, so I get why episode 8 would be your favourite. So John D says, I think Demerzel might be allowed to kill a Day if he strays from some path and she becomes focused on the decanted Day, and there's some core programming at play here as well, I think. Yeah, you're right, we still don't know. I mean, they've answered a lot of questions with Demerzel, but we still don't know really what she was up to before she was in that room. We've only got her word that that's what really happened, and just think about that. I'm not going to spoil anything, but just think about that. And they've obviously mentioned as well that she can, or she used to be able to swap bodies. So again, just remember that for down the road. Just saying, folks. Susanna says, season 2 ain't my favourite as well. Yep, I think you mentioned that in the comments to me. I get why episode 8 would be people's favourite, because you do get the Seraph putting it all together and then the reveal. Love it. Fernandez T, did you hear about the theory of Terminus not being blown up when it was all on their heads after they touched the Prime Radiant? I hope not, because that would ruin it. Yeah, I spoke about it earlier on in the stream, why I don't think it's possible. I went on at length about it, so I don't want to bore anyone, but essentially I think in terms of serving the plot and story, it works to clear that many characters out to bring new characters in, and also it's got the whole Empire Strikes Back, the good guys are on the back foot kind of thing, and it plays into Harry's plan of losing a battle to win a war. So yep, I think Terminus is 100% gone. Silicone Avatar 84 says she serves Empire. If one of the Cleons is a threat to Empire, she can fix it. I think current day will not make it to the end of episode 10. See, I don't know. I've got this vision of there being a time jump at the end of this episode, and we see that the Empire exists, but it's nowhere near as big. If you watched the live stream last week, the example I used was, if you think of the British monarchy or the British Empire, how big it was 300 years ago compared to now it's just a tourist attraction. So it might be that there has been the fall of Trantor doesn't mean it's going to be destroyed. Like, it just means that it's going to be attacked and that civilization won't function. So we could see them on a collapsed Trantor, or we could see one of the days on another planet the way Hari was on Terminus, or the Foundation I should say was on Terminus. So I've had that going round in my head since season 2 started, that there's going to be a time jump and we're going to see that the Empire isn't as big or isn't in the position that it is now. And Bell has kind of said that if the Empire falls, there's no one big enough to take their place. So that's a good point as well, but again, I don't know. That's just something that's in my head, a theory that I have. No concrete proof, nothing like that. Oh, excuse me. Krishna, yeah, I've seen that episode 10 description. So episode 10 description says Demerzel heads to Trantor, taking actions that will change Empire forever. And I mentioned it earlier on in the stream that what's going to happen with... Where is it? Is that one there? Excellent, got it right up. What's going to happen with Rue and Dawn? Loads of possibilities. Loads of possibilities. Like, or what's going to happen to Seraph, right? Let's forget about Dawn and Rue and Dusk. Do you think, guys, Seraph is going to survive the end of the season? Not if she's going to be in season 3, just if she's going to survive the end of episode 10. So if you think she's going to survive, give me a Y or a yes. And if you think she's dead or she's not going to make it, give me an N or a no. Because I think that's something I was going to bring up. I'm glad someone brought that plot synopsis up. Mark says Dusk will be replaced. Yep, it's one theory. Again, you can replace him. You can just decant a new one and wipe his memory. They've set that up. Dawn, I'm not sure. We've seen her kill a Dawn before, so yeah. Maybe she's going to go on like a John Wick style massacre and just walk out in the wedding and cap them all. Man, a lot of people... Oh, the no's have it. There you go, folks. Unless it's going to be about 20 yeses in 10 seconds, but I don't think so. It's one thing that's going to not annoy me, but I would have liked to have seen maybe a flashback of Seraph and Rue coming up with this plan, or like what would they do in the day before they went to Trantor kind of thing. Because I really didn't think I was going to like Seraph when I first seen her on screen, and I didn't even notice that Rue was going to be the big deal that she is. But yeah, I like the character of Seraph, and I just wonder, is she playing Dawn? I mentioned that in last week's stream as well. Is she still manipulating him? Is she playing both sides against the middle? Yada yada. Going back to parallels I always talk about, there's the parallel between Seraph and Dawn and Dusk and Rue. You know how Rue is sort of her version of Dawn, giving her advice. Let's see. People just want to talk about Demerzel. Only one yes. Vic's it, only one. Vic. Oh. I'm glad they got one yes. I thought it was going to be unanimous there. Jesus. So, I'll probably pronounce this wrong. Nowitsky says, is Demerzel the one altering the DNA of Cleon the First so she can finally be able to disobey and be free? Yep, I kind of think that. Or I think at least it's a possibility that she is manipulating, or she has manipulated it over the long term, because keep saying it, focus on what they focus on. Demerzel said, a human life isn't that long to me, so she's now at what, the 17th or 18th Cleon? So it's only 17 or 18 lifetimes, nowhere near the 18,000 years that she's been about. So she, you know, if anyone's playing the long game, it's her and Hari Seldon, but more her. That's why Hari wanted her, to have the Prime Radiant. Now, that's also interesting as well, is how did Hari pick up that she was a robot? I mean, maybe he'd heard rumours and stuff because he was at high level when he was at the university, but I don't know. King Dell01, has anyone theorised that Terminus wasn't destroyed? Yep, I've spoke about that at length at the start of the stream. We all think it is destroyed, so unanimous, they're all dead. Let's see, Dave Rose Tantrum and Dane Hari. So K Lodds has pulled up a quote from the episode, which is the conversation between Dave, Demerzel and Hari. Dave throws a tantrum, Demerzel and Hari, Cleon, the adults are talking. So yeah, like, how did he know though? How did he know? Because there's way more reveals about Demerzel, or there has to be down the line. Again, I don't want to get any book spoilers. One, because I don't want to ruin it. If you wanted to find out, you would find out yourself. And two, as I always say, they're going off the book, so whatever is in them isn't gospel anymore. John D says, I thought the DNA was altered in Season 1 by Azura's group. Yes, but Demerzel could have still been behind that. I think that's what a lot of people mean. Because we still don't know about the assassination 100% either. And I'm sure there's been a few other questions. I mean, there's been planets and stuff mentioned. I'm terrible with names, but there's one planet in particular I'm waiting to get mentioned in Foundation that I don't think has been brought up yet. And I won't say what it is, but it'll be a big deal when it shows up, or at least a big deal potentially down the line. P Styles says they have taken Terminus's tech. That's a very good point. But will they have the people with the brains to reverse engineer it? Because although they got the tech on the planet, we didn't see them get into like the Whisper ship, so they only got the auras that they already have. They probably got some weapon stuff, communication stuff, I'd imagine. Double G says episode 10 prediction. Oh, I'll get to that. I've got a few, but I don't know. It's just what it's going to set up for season 3 would be. I'd be more interested or more focused or be able to talk about that, because the episode could go anyway depending if we get flashbacks, because we've had flashbacks of Hari and Demerzel and I suppose Cleon this season already. So are all the stories going to tie together? Are they not? There's a lot going on that got to think about. Justin Sizemore says, speaking of Game of Thrones, my theory is the mule is like the three-eyed raven and he's trying to influence the past like how Brandon Stark done. No, don't do time travel. Don't do time travel. Not in this show. That's like when a sci-fi show gets really lazy and it just relies on time travel. Well, if you want to watch two modern shows that deal with time travel totally different, watch the new rebooted Quantum Leap, which is fine. It's not the worst show I've ever seen, but it's a terrible time travel show. And then go and watch Dark on Netflix, which is like the most adult, you need to sit there with a notebook to figure it out, in-depth time travel show you'll ever see in your life. And I'm going to cover Dark at some point, but like, the note taken on it would just be insane. I'd need to be watching every episode 3 or 4 times. But anyway, let's get back to the chat. So, do I think the mule's going to be like the three-eyed raven? No, I hope they cut the whole Vision stuff out, but again, depends how far season 3 is going to be set in the future, or from where season 2 leaves off, I guess. Mark Lister said, did the Prime Radiant reset Demerzel's programming? I don't think so. I don't think it would have the ability to do that. No, I don't think it would do that. But we've not seen any indications that it can influence things like that on the outside. We've not seen it influence any tech. We've only seen, tech be built around it. So I don't think that's probably the case. Sorry guys, Google has been very slow. Whenever I scroll through these chats, it kind of jumps. Chevy Dave says Dark was incredible. The new Quantum Leap is pish. I was going to review the new Quantum Leap, but I would be too hard on it. There's a couple of storylines that I liked, not like individual episodes, but if you've seen the whole series, there's like story threads where I thought that's really clever, but the rest of the show's crap, and it looks so cheap. It looks unbelievably cheap. So a little bit going on in the chat. Let's see. So done Game of Thrones. Did Dawn and Demerzel. Let's see. Ariel says the Spacers are still perturbed about what Hobor Malor told them about Empire. Yeah, I think a lot of people have forgotten about the Spacers this episode. Well, there's a theory then. Here's a theory about how the whole Terminus thing could be faked. Everyone there, yeah, everyone that we seen arrive there would have done, other than the Whisper ships, would have done so on an Empire ship asleep. So could the Spacers have interfered with them in their sleep, or the telepaths wouldn't. Maybe would the telepaths be able to stay awake? I don't know. I don't think so. But again, that'd be getting too into the fan serviceness of it all. I try and stick to the logic of the show. So I think the Spacers will become a big part in the next season or over the story, because it's fascinating what they can do with them and how Empire depends on them and how they're kind of like slaves, and or at least some of them are. They've got to give away a percentage of the population. God, that's hard to say. Let's see. Edo says, where's that accent from? I'm from Scotland, just outside Glasgow. Susanna Troy, returning viewer, excuse me, says Hobor's wrist. Yeah, I was going to mention that. Where are we? I don't think it's the wrist, but yeah, with Bell and Hobart in this scene, like they done this for a reason, where they showed you the bangles or the bracelets, whatever you want to call them, that he used to body swap in the episode where we met him, episode 2 or 3. So that's going to come back into it, but with one episode to go, I don't know. They're definitely reminding us that those bangles exist. I mean, it could just be as simple as they use it to get out the prison cell somehow, or it could be more complex. But yeah, what do you guys think about the bangles? And thanks, Susanna, for bringing that up. It's something that I forgot to talk about. Do you think the bangles are going to get used next episode, or do you think it's going to be something long term for season 3? Let me know in the comments, guys. Mark says my favourite shows this year are Foundation and From. I was going to cover From, but I didn't get time to do it. I suppose I could do it as a recap, because it's a show that is kind of complicated, but you've got to follow it, but at the same time, you kind of don't have to if you don't want to. Loved the first season of From. The second season, let's see what they're going to do with it. The third one, because that second season set up a lot of stuff, and I know it's from the producers or writers of Lost, and it's got at least one of the guys for Lost in it, but yeah, it's getting very Lost. Vic says I'm disappointed in From. First season, phenomenal. Look, really interesting ideas, really good setups. I'm not going to ruin it for people that haven't seen it, but a lot of interesting questions in the series, and then the second season was just more of the same, just giving us more questions and more theories. But hey, that's how I make my channel, is questions and theories. But thank you all guys for being here as well. Thanks for the super chats, and the new members, if you've just subbed to the channel, let me know. Wow, a lot of new members, a lot of new subs actually, I should say. But yeah, speaking of members, I will be putting maybe extended or extra Foundation episodes on the members section on my YouTube channel. And then other videos as well, once Foundation's ended, they'll get premiered in the members section first, so that'll be Raised by Wolves, Severance, if it ever comes back, when it ever comes back. Probably a few other shows as well, but at the moment, obviously, you can't say what, because things are getting pushed and pulled and stuff's getting crazy. Or it will be, or it'll get very dull soon, because there'll be no new TV shows to watch. Mark says people complained about the pacing from season 2, but I loved it. Too much mystery. Too much mystery. But that's for another video, as I always say. Ross Hampton says, could the protective aura be enough to survive an imploding planet? Probably not, is my guess. Probably not. Ahsoka, I'm enjoying it. I know what's going to happen in it, but I'm not going to talk spoilers that here. But yeah, Ahsoka, hardcore Star Wars fans are either going to love or hate it. And it better get a season 2, that's all I'm going to say. Ahsoka sucks. Sorry I misread that. Ahsoka sucks. Oh well. You probably wouldn't be bothered if I ruined it then. But what other shows, because Foundation is coming to an end on Friday, would you guys want me to talk about after it? Let me know. I might do Star Trek Lower Decks. I've not watched the new episodes yet because I've not had time. Because I've been doing stuff for other videos that are coming. I might do Star Trek Lower Decks. I'm trying to think what else is out at the moment. Oh, Daryl Dixon, The Walking Dead, that's coming out. I might do at least the first episode of that. Because I'm just fascinated by The Walking Dead as a franchise, that it just keeps getting all these spin-offs that are kind of crap quality and not as good as the original, but people keep watching them and it keeps going. So I don't hate it, but I don't love it, and I'm just curious about the business model of it. It's kind of like Star Trek, that it's just producing all of these shows and I don't get who the target audience is for them, because they're kind of tonally very different. Mark says Invasion was okay, but the story lacks logic. I watched like the first 3 episodes of that when it was originally on and I couldn't get into it at all. John Jenkins says Silo. John, if you go back and look at my channel, I've got loads of Silo videos. I've got the 10 episodes plus theory videos plus what's going to happen next. So check that out. I'd recommend the Outside Explained video for Silo. It's really good. Silo is a show that kind of got me monetized on YouTube. That don't make a lot of money, but thanks for any contributions, guys. Greatly appreciated, obviously. But yeah, Silo is, because when I started the channel, I'll go back a bit. When I started the channel, it was going to be like Marvel and Star Trek and Star Wars and stuff, and then again, those fan bases, not all of them, but some of them are very problematic, and I was like, I don't want to get involved with it. And I covered the first Foundation show, and I got not a lot of views, but a lot of views for where my channel was at the time. And then with Picard, the Orville and Silo and Foundation Season 2, I've just got a lot of new lovely people here, so I want to make sure I'm talking about subjects that interest you as well as me. But I'm not going to lie, sometimes I'm going to talk about subjects that just interest me, because there's a few shows that have been cancelled, like Raised by Wolves and Counterparts one I really want to cover. Just because I think those shows need attention. I want people to watch them. It's not because I think I'm going to get views off of it, but shows need to find an audience. Alice in Borderland is good. I've heard of that. That's on Netflix, Vic. I don't really watch Netflix, if I'm being honest. Although what I watched recently, last weekend, One Piece, absolutely loved it. Like, I totally thought that was not going to be the show for me. I watched the trailer and it done nothing for me. And I thought, nah, just no, this. It's not. There's nothing in this that is going to appeal to me. And I put the first episode on out of curiosity, and I watched all. I think there's 8 of them. I watched them in 2 days because it's such a refreshing show. I know it's not the thing I usually cover on my channel, but although One Piece is probably the biggest show on the planet right now, it's definitely worth a watch, especially if you get any type of franchise fatigue, like Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever, Walking Dead. One Piece is just so refreshing. If you've never seen it and you go into it blind, it's great. Just because there's no really big name actors in it, I suppose. And I think it's like now the 3rd most expensive TV show ever made after The Mandalorian and Lord of the Rings. Mark says, what does woke mean? I think it's a term used to describe something you don't like without being classed as prejudice. Well, I think woke means whatever you want it to mean, but I don't get into those debates. If you like something, you like it, and if you hate it, that's fine as well. You're entitled to... Everyone's entitled to express themselves. But I don't want to be a channel that goes down the arguments of that. Because that's why I didn't really cover She-Hulk. Because, the stuff that was coming out then, crazy. John says, yep, talking about Raised by Wolves. So yeah, I've got that review coming, guys. I'm really looking forward to that, actually. Because I loved the second season of Raised by Wolves. It was just so good, and it was setting up so much, and it just ended. And I loved the whole technology, religion stuff it was doing, and AI stuff as well. But going back to this episode, is there anything else that you want to discuss? Because we've kind of gone off topic. Christian says I'm the only one that likes the Invasion show. Yep, probably. But it's on its second season, so people are watching it. But in about episode 9 that you want to discuss that I missed out, I kind of went off on tangent about the whole Hobor thing. So yeah, the Spacers and Hobor, I don't know what's going on there with that, what you call it, bite or mark. But yeah, they definitely didn't just show Bell and Hobor interacting like that for no reason. You know, if Bell decides to literally jump ship, Hobor's going to be the guy that's going to help him get out. Because think about these two. Oh god, I hope they don't do that like Hobor and Bell on Adventures. You know what I mean? You don't need Luke Skywalker and bloody Han Solo. Mark says HBO cancelled a few good shows. Yeah, Carnival was one. If you watched that, it was out about Carnival was out about 20 years ago now. I think it was 2003. Maybe it was 2006. I can't remember. I think it was later actually. Maybe 2006. But only lasted 2 seasons. Phenomenal show. Ended on a cliffhanger because it was too expensive. Excuse me, just getting a drink, guys. One show that I did want to cover that I don't think anyone watched, although it got 2 seasons, and it was created by the guy that co-created Foundation, is Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. Josh Friedman. He worked on that, and I know the Terminator franchise is now dead, but the Sarah Connor Chronicles was the best Terminator 3 that no one watched. Like, if you ignore everything after Terminator 2, Sarah Connor Chronicles was actually phenomenal. And it had, what's the actress's name? Lena Headey, that played Cersei in Game of Thrones as Sarah Connor, and she was really good, considering obviously she's British, and Linda Hamilton made that an iconic role. John Jenkins says, Snowpiercer, do you mean Snowpiercer the TV show or the film? Because the TV show is terrible and the film is a masterpiece. Let's see. Fernandez said Snowpiercer went off the rails at some point. Excuse my pun. It started off good though. Yeah, Snowpiercer was a great idea. Because I didn't think I was going to like the TV show, and I watched the first season. I was like, oh, this is not bad. They can take this some places. And the second season started, and it was just slowly got worse. I mean, I might cover it at some point, but as far as I know, I might be wrong. They made a 4th season, but they're not going to air it anywhere. It's one of those tax write-off ones. Ariel says Hari Seldon inside the vault, just let Day take the Radiant like it's no big deal. Something about that entire scenario. Definitely. But as I keep saying, he's thinking of winning the war, not the battle. But yeah, going back to what I was saying earlier, I just wonder what Day and Demerzel are going to do it. They've got to study it. And there's got to be a version of Hari in it, right? Yeah, there's got to be. So yeah, looks like Raised by Wolves is Pop and Snowpiercer. Yeah, as I was saying, NU Jeans, they made a 4th season, but the Netflix, I think it was, whoever it was, or was it Peacock? Netflix or Peacock done it as a tax write-off, so it won't see the light of day. Like they done with, what HBO done with the Batgirl film and everything else. Excuse me. Susanna says, Season 2, lots of prisons, they're all in a prison one way or another. And do you know what? I've got a video about that coming out this week, so you read my mind on that one. Yep, loads of prisons in Foundation, literal physical, metaphysical. Again, going back to parallels, lots of mirrors of each other or opposite behaviour. I've got a couple of videos coming on that throughout the week. So make sure you don't miss it, guys. And if you are new here and not subscribed to the channel, just do it. It doesn't cost you anything other than a small click. And welcome new folk to the channel as well. New Jeans says, please tell me Rue is going to be okay. The final is making me nervous. No, I think she's for the chop. Sadly, because I kind of like her. I don't know the actress that plays her, actually. She's one of the few new faces in Foundation I've not looked into. But I don't know if you guys are aware, there's a lot of British actors in it. So you see people that maybe were in like soap operas or murder mysteries or something like that when they were younger. And you can like, I know that person, but you don't know exactly who it is. Edo says, is Demerzel Daniil? I can't get any talking about that because that would be spoilers. But don't no one look into that, forget that comment. But I suppose I said I'm doing a video about the end of Foundation, so I'll talk about the Man on the Moon when I get there. I'll just miss out the rest of it. She's really working Sunset, or whatever his name is. Who do you mean, Vic? Dawn, you mean Dawn. Sorry, Dawn. I got that there, sorry. Yeah, hey yesterday, John Jenkins, that was the best line. But don't make Hobor Mallow Han Solo. Just don't do it. Don't do it. I wonder if there is going to be a time jump, if it will be him and Constant having a kid. Imagine that. Because if you haven't read the books, Hobor plays a massive part in the fall of Empire and the rise of the Second Foundation. So although he's not done a lot this season, I was shocked when they brought him in that quickly, and I was shocked how young he was. And they've not really done too much with him. I mean, the last few episodes, he's had the Spacers, the Rescue, and then the whole Bell Day thing. So kind of as the story goes, but that's another reason that I think the whole Terminus ending is real, is there's too many characters in the show at the moment. I mean, you've got the clones, you've got how many versions of Hari, 2 or 3, you've got Gale and Salvor, you've got Bel Rios, his husband, Tellem Bond, the little boy Joseph, Polly, Constant, her parents. They're just thinning it out like Game of Thrones, I think, and it makes sense. It's just, the show spans a lot of 1,000 years anyway. Excuse me, so some people are going to fall by the wayside, but one thing to remember is, I think it's it's definitely season 1, I think it's episode 1 or 2, you hear a narration by Gale, and she's talking as if she's talking about the distant past. She's talking about meeting Salvor, she's talking about hearing the name Salvor and the mule and Hobor Mallow, so it's Gale talking from far into the future, but it's the same actress's voice. And I thought that was a real accent, but I watched an interview with her last week, and she just got a kind of standard London accent. Or maybe that's not a real accent. Vic says the Planet Demerzel references on the visit to Halima starts with a D. I need to go back and watch that. Although one thing that's worth mentioning that I've not brought up yet, which is a big thing, is they mentioned it in season 1 that they understood that some people believed there was a planet called Earth where humans are from, but now they've confirmed it. And again, not to ruin the books, but Earth, or what happened to Earth, is key to the story, and finding out why Trantor is the main planet that humanity lives on is key to the story. So the fact that they established they're going to Earth at some point is a huge deal. Because I don't know if you noticed, or anyone's noticed, but the design on the toolbox of Demerzel's, toolbox, is our solar system. New Gene says, so were all the robots made on Earth? No. I can't talk about Earth without ruining it, and I don't want to ruin it for anyone. Again, if you want to find stuff out, you can go Wikipedia it and whatever. If I do a video on it, you can choose to watch it or not. I'm not going to spoil it, and for anyone that doesn't want it spoiled, so I'll give you the option. Eugene says as well, Dusk got his loved one back and now they're going to be offed. Yeah, 100%. One of them's going to die. John Jenkins, so what happened to Earth? I'm not going to talk about it. It's if they follow the rough story of the books, it will Earth will the history of Earth will get explained, and again you'll find out why humans think Trantor, or why they consider Trantor to be the capital planet rather than Earth. Demerzel was made on Earth, did I hear? They've not said that in the show. So, in the show, they've not said it. I think she did mention Earth, but I don't think she said she was made there. I need to go back and watch that. But yeah, the fact that Cleon had clearly researched it is setting up huge things for the show. But that it wouldn't be next season, it'd be like at least 2 seasons away. Ariel says Seraph is still planning on killing Day. Yeah, but she's got Demerzel to contend to, and remember, Day is still on Terminus, or what's left of Terminus. Demerzel went back on her own. That's an interesting point though. Is Day going to show up on Trantor in episode 10? Because I can't see him showing back up with his tail between his legs after Demerzel, like a dog or something. I think he'd probably do like a brief tour of the Empire to celebrate his victory. That's what I think might happen. So, do you think Day is going to show up on Trantor in the finale, guys? Let me know with a Y if you think he is, and let me know with an N if you think he's not. And I'm going to take a drink because I'm losing my voice. Excuse me. John Jenkins, showwriter, says he's an off-the-ramp plan for seasons 4, 6 and 8 depending on success. Yeah, that's wise, because look at Game of Thrones, going back a bit, like, great show up until halfway through the second last season, then it got terrible. Vic says they kind of alluded to it when Dusk went over the Robot Wars. Yeah, but the show might change something with regards to Demerzel's past that is or isn't in the books. But they're definitely set you up for the fact that Demerzel can inhabit different bodies and probably has inhabited different bodies, so she hasn't always been a she, and she hasn't always looked like that. Ban from Mojito says, I got the impression Demerzel was from Earth. Cleon Dynasty, 650 plus years. Demerzel is somewhat 18,000 years old. Yeah, but she said she'd been in that room for, was it 4 or was it 5,000 years? So she would have been about 10 or 11,000 years. Nah, not depending, no. Yeah, no, she would have been older than that. Yeah, but she would have been hanging on that wall for thousands of years anyway. Because that's the thing of like trying to work out the sort of timeline when they're talking about things in the past that you haven't seen. You've got to really get specific on it. Demerzel was locked up for 5,000 years. There you go. So if she's 18,000 years old, man, how would you even calculate that? That'd be crazy. As in 18,000 years, I'm not talking about how you would calculate how old she is. So say she's about 12 or 13,000 years old. And she said she walked the spiral. Yeah, so this is the stuff I'm talking about, that she said she walked the spiral when she was a certain age. She said she'd done this at a certain age. So maybe not everything that she's saying is true. Because we didn't see every conversation that she had. You know, if there are other... They could have filmed other stuff for flashbacks that we haven't seen yet, or that we won't see. Yeah, Fernandez T, that was the only thing that irked me about the episode, the whole 5k years and no one found that spot. True, that did bother me a little bit, but then I guess No, I was going to say it's relying on someone to not touch that painting, but there would have been other kids in that palace that would have touched it. But I think in season 3 we probably will get more flashbacks of Demerzel and maybe other robots, but I don't want to say any more about that. Yeah, Shibby Dave says the fact the toolbox she was given had the solar system on it points that if not Earth, she was probably local. 100% right. And yeah, I'll talk about one thing from the books is that when there's basically two characters that go looking for the home of humanity and they find another planet nearby where they think Earth is, and as soon as they get there there's other developed humans there. That's all I'll say on that, but again they can change it from the books or whatever, it doesn't matter. Mr. Kilted says if she's able to move to another body, which was just an upload process for an AI, why didn't she move to another body to leave her prison? Is it because her prison prevents her from doing that? Yeah, I imagine it's probably a complicated process. It's not like plugging a USB into a laptop and dragging your holiday movies or work documents across. And as I said at the start of the stream, like, she's one version of robot, there has to be others. There has to be more advanced ones that came after her because the technology must still be around, or ones before her. So Vic says, side note, when she said that, when she grabbed the crystal, what did she say? Luminism is 15k years old. Yeah, I didn't know if they're going to bring the whole Luminism thing back this year or not. I'm kind of glad that they didn't, because I'll be honest, the Spiral episode was my least favourite one of the entire seasons, to both seasons. I just thought it went on a little bit and it didn't look the way it should. I think that was a COVID thing though, I'm not blaming anyone. I think a lot of the first season looked a bit weird because they didn't have the extras or the crew that they needed. Like the whole trial of Hari Seldon, there's a huge room and only like 6 guys in it. But that's just my point of view. But yeah, I know it did suffer quite a lot of issues with COVID and the pandemic. One says they lost the war, there were no war robots allegedly. True, but I mean, one or two had to survive. Talking about Star Wars, when the Jedi were eliminated, dozens of Jedi still survived. Mr. Kiltley, I did ask earlier what about being locked up for 5,000 years would do to your mind. Even for an AI, it would have an effect. What is Demerzel's current mindset or view about humans? Hard to say. I think we're going to find that out in this episode because they've brought up the laws of robotics and stuff again. So there's another law of robotics that I've not mentioned. I think I hinted at it at a video, but if they bring that up in the last episode, I'll be shocked that they're bringing it up that early, specifically. But it's a way around certain issues. Because I think when Asimov wrote The Foundation, he came up with a great idea. And then he really struggled to take it places. Not that it's bad, it's all fantastic stuff, but it's like, you know, when a rock band produces their first hit album, the second album usually isn't as good as the first one. And I think the ideas were a little bit too complicated to weave all the stories through, because the books are not a tough read, but not the easiest thing to pick up and put down, put it that way. At least in my opinion. Loads of people love it, of course, because it's been around for bloody 60 years. Banfamito says, oh no, not a BSG storyline where humans discover they're actually Cylons. Maybe. They call them, what's the name in the novels? Humiform robots is, I think, what they're referred to. But I've not really read the Isaac Asimov robot stuff in years, because again, it's all too convoluted. There's characters that pop up in certain novels that are main characters, then pop up in other ones as I'm not going to get into it, but it's complicated. Eugene says, what I would like to have more backstory on Imperial rulers before the Cleonic dynasty, like the original parents and all the rulers before them. You mean like House of the Dragon? Maybe. I think that'd probably be good. But we kind of got that in this episode where we've seen Cleon's parents, although we didn't spend much time with them. But let's say I thought the episode was all going to be told from flashbacks of Demerzel and the different Cleons. I mean, they kind of ran through the dawn, day and dusk timelines quite quickly. There you go, Juan says humaniform. I knew it was something like that. I've not read it in years. Mr. Kiltlett says, I think the robot is misleading. Demerzel can move to another body. She's capable of controlling multiple bodies. Demerzel said all robots went into hiding, big and small. Yeah, there's been a few things. I'll need to go back and watch it because they've mentioned the robotic wars a few times. And obviously they appear in all the murals and paintings and whatever. But yeah, as I said earlier on in the stream, if you missed it, robots are going to play an absolutely huge part in the Foundation, at least if they adapt the book, or go along with the book adaptation, I should say. So I'm going to wrap this up in about 15 minutes, guys, because you can tell I'm losing my voice. So if there's anything else that you want to talk about, now's the time to do it. And if you want to drop a super chat or subscribe to the channel, you can do that as well. But loads of people showing up this week, so fantastic. Thanks for joining us, all the new people. I'll try and remember your names for next week. Don't change your profile pictures, because I won't remember. So Eugene just saying he would like to see a flashback just for one episode. Yeah, I'm kind of getting a little bit sick of the flashbacks, to be honest. I hope they kind of don't do that in Season 3 as much. I'll be honest, I think a lot of the Hari flashbacks were unnecessary. Not unnecessary, but unnecessarily long. And when this season ends, on Friday, probably, I'll need to go back and watch it, so not a week from now, but 2 weeks from now, I'm going to probably do a video of things that I liked and things that I didn't, like good and bad, or a live stream, I can't decide. I'll see if there's another show on that I can cover, but I don't think there's going to be anything else. The only big one that's coming out is that Daryl Dixon one that just looks like The Last of Us. But we'll see. If not, I'll find something else to talk about, I'm sure. Ban from Mojito says, glad I found your channel, and so am I. Thanks if you're subscribed. I'm sure you are. But I'm probably just going to do general live streams as well, where I talk about other stuff that is happening in the entertainment news, like maybe the strikes and Marvel stuff and Star Wars stuff, without having to sit and make, a video for 4 hours. It's a lot easier, because a lot of the Marvel stuff that's coming up is going to be interesting, I think. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I quite like some of it and the potential of it. And I'm going to cover... I might cover Gen Z, actually, that new Boys show. Actually, how would you feel if I covered The Boys and Gen Z? Because The Boys has got 3 seasons, and I love it. I think The Boys might be my favourite show in the last 5 years. Mr. Kiltlett says almost midnight. Yep, thanks for joining me. Have a good week. If you guys are checking out, don't worry about it. But just thanks for everyone showing up, and thanks for everyone that subscribed to the channel, and thanks for everyone that's watched my videos and left comments. Like, when I started the channel, I didn't think I'd get 100 subs, let alone almost nearly 2,000. And let's say Silo and Foundation have just had such a great response to the videos, and such a great quality of people. No riff-raff in here. Vic says, I agree, some of the book purists make it impossible to voice your enjoyment with this series. And yeah, I try and avoid the negative side of fandom. Although I'd make so much more money if I went evil. God, I'd make so much money. They all do. That's the grift. You've got to sell your soul to the dark side. Ice Lord says, sorry, can you start over? No. I've been talking for... How long have I been talking for now? An hour and 45 minutes. So we agreed some people have died, some people have died, some people haven't. And some people probably will, but then again, others won't. And that's just general life, not just Foundation. Fernandez T, more super chats incoming, can't wait for the next one. Fantastic, I appreciate that as well. Yeah, what I was saying there before I was reading that out, just appreciate every comment and every view, because it's been crazy. I know it's not Mr. Beast numbers or anything like that, but I never thought I'd get an audience, let alone a nice audience that I wouldn't have to fight on a regular basis. So I'm glad. I do have to delete comments sometimes. Like I had to delete one this week that I was going to talk about, and I was like, no, because they really, really were out of line, and I really had to go at them. I told them to fuck off. John Jenkins, I like the boys as well. Yeah, I was going to cover the show and the comics because I've read all the comics. I think there's like 140 odd issues of the boys. Going to cover Invincible as well, and I might cover the comic for that because I've read Invincible, and that's probably one of the greatest comic runs in the last 20 years. You won't imagine, if you like the Invincible show and you've not read the comics, you will not imagine where that story is going to go. It's the future, space, dimensions, 1,000 years, it's all there. Wando says the dark side of the force is a pathway to many abilities. Yeah, it's a pathway to like, yeah, it's a pathway to grifting and getting annoyed about picking your pronouns on Starfield or whatever it's called. But yeah, I never thought anyone would get angry at that. But anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, good for you. Don't Google it because it's not worth your time. But coming to the last 10 minutes, guys. So anything else you want to talk about before I wrap this one up? John Jenkins, best comic run not in the last 20 years. Oh, Batman Nightfall, which is huge. I loved, because that was the first big graphic novel that I devoured. Batman Nightfall. There's an X-Men one, God Loves, Man Kills, I think, as well. That's what it's called. I always get that mixed up. Frank Miller Daredevil stuff from the 80s was pretty good. I've never been a Superman fan, really. I'm a Batman guy, so there's been a lot of good Batman in the last 20 years, but before that, Batman Nightfall, or Frank Miller's The Dark Knight's phenomenal. They made that into an animated film, which was fine, not great, but not terrible either. Let's see what else. Fernandez T says chats in general on YouTube have been positive more. Maybe the current political climate is making us geekners be friendlier. This is our safe space. Anyone can. I welcome any discussion, but if you're going to target certain groups and make jokes, probably not. This probably isn't the channel for you. That's what I'm saying. I mean, do I think that some TV shows and movies have messages forced into them? Absolutely. But do I think it's going to cause the collapse of society? No. I don't think putting trans characters or whatever in TV shows is going to cause the collapse of society. I don't think having representation in TV shows and movies is rewriting culture, whatever the hell, pop culture, whatever the hell it is. Just everyone calm down. Fernandez T, why does Batman's mask only cover half of his face? Because you need to see him express. You need the emotions. Ben Affleck had a great cowl. I know not a lot of people liked it, but I loved it. So they can see he's white. Oh, it's a joke. It's a joke, right? I get it. Oh, it has been. Is it Luke Fox? In the comics, I think they done him in the Batgirl TV show as well. He became Batwing, I think. I've not read Batman in a while. Like, I like Batman solo stories. It's when they get into the whole Bat family stuff, and there's too many characters. Like Batman and Robin, kind of alright, depending on who your Robin is. But it's the same with like that whole Arrowverse show. Like they just added so many characters at the end that if you skip out a couple of episodes, there's like 5 new guys in the Flash and 3 new people in this, and it's just hard to cover. Vic says, plot twist, everyone's a clone and robots have been pulling strings the whole time. You're not far wrong, but I won't talk about that. Ice Lord Nightwing. Yeah, I like Nightwing. Nightwing's kind of cool, but what's the name of the Robin? Tim Drake. I don't like Tim Drake. I like Carrie Kelly, the female Robin. There's been a couple. Damian Wayne. That's one thing that bothers me is James Gunn bringing in Damian Wayne. I hate Damian Wayne. That's going to really, piss me off. I was going to do a series of videos on what was going to happen with DC as well, because that was fascinating that they were going to do Batgirl and Supergirl and The Flash and a few other things and just completely change the universe, and then they got rid of it. Weird. I'm trying to think if there's any Marvel shows coming up. There's not Miss Marvel, The Marvels. And I think that's it. There's nothing for a while. And then on Star Wars, The Skeleton Crew, but I think that's February. Someone told me it's February the 14th that's coming out, but I don't know if that's right or not. And I do talk about, I do get videos that don't get great views, such as the Star Wars Ahsoka videos. Hint, hint, people. Just saying, hint, hint. I'm just joking. You don't have to watch those. I think Star Wars has fallen off for a lot of people. It's hard to get the casual fans on board. But I did watch Rebels recently. I should say I rewatched it because I haven't watched it whenever it finished about 8 years ago. And I really enjoyed it. A lot of filler episodes, but the really good episodes, like the really ones that get into the lore of Star Wars, are pretty solid. But that's a show coming to an end, so thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thanks for the super chats as well. As I said, I'm going to be putting videos up early or putting extended videos on the member section of my website, or the member section of my YouTube as well. So I'll post the links in the community tab. If you want to become a member and support the channel, that would be fantastic. You can do it from like $2 going upwards. And I appreciate any support, and I appreciate you just showing up, and I appreciate the views and people subscribing as well. So I know there's been a lot of new people in here tonight. And a lot of good chat as well. I've not even had a bot. I got a bot the first time. So that's good. And I'm going to be posting more Foundation videos throughout the week. Theories and otherwise. And I might do another stream the night before the last episode. But we'll see how it goes. See how the week goes. So don't know what's a good time. The reason I picked this time on it's Sunday night for me is some people are just hanging about on a Sunday with nothing to do, so I'll get viewers like yourself in, whereas 6 PM your time on a Tuesday, you're probably not going to want to watch YouTube. Fernandez, thanks, and thanks for all your support. Hope to see you in chat and the comments. Ice Lord, I watched Spaceballs last weekend. Never seen that film all the way through, I'll be honest. Don't know why. We're all bots, always have been. I'm going to do some videos on the Foundation novel, so it'll contain some potential spoilers for the show, but nothing like, for season 3 or whatever, because I don't know what's going to happen. It's just how they might end the show. Because the last 2 books weren't even written, or was it the last one? The last 2, I think, weren't even written by Isaac Asimov. It was another guy, because he died. But anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. That's it, coming up to 11 PM here. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all your support. I'll let you know if I'm going to do another live stream during the week. And make sure if you are subscribed to the channel, you've got notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. And as always, I'm out. Thanks for watching.